Here we go. We are back with the Week 6 Power Rankings. I've had a busy schedule, done some things. Didn't have time for the Power Rankings again last week, but I'm back here in Week 6 for the Power Rankings. We have a few surprise picks here in the Power Rankings, so I'm going to get right down to it because we also are evaluating everybody's number one pick a few weeks into the season. Coming in at number one with the surprise pick, but is it a surprise? Josh Kerr. It kind of is a surprise just because he did take a loss this week. I still think his team is very, very good. Josh. Josh. Oh, that's an insult. Okay, Josh dropped a decent point total with 103. We know we've calculated in this league you need 115 points to expect to win. He wasn't expected to win, but even if he did drop that 115, there's just no way he was going to win this last week playing against me. So with Josh, I still think 4-1. He still has the playoff spot pretty much locked up. As crazy as that sounds, he already has it locked up. He is the number one team until his team starts losing consistently, but starting 4-1 is a great start. Coming in at number two, I actually have the Colin brothers. The Colin brothers have been kind of sneaky good this year. I don't think anybody realizes kind of where their points are coming from because it comes from somebody different each week. Allen Robinson, 25 points. I mean, the Bears suck, but Allen Robinson sure doesn't. Evan Ingram sometimes drops a huge point total. Leonard Fournette came from a blast from the past and dropped 20 points this last week. The Colin brothers put up a cold 122 points. Very cold 122 points. They look like a powerhouse in this league this year. Watch out for them moving forward. Coming in at number three, I have Ryan Naughton. This is probably the biggest jump, the team that made the biggest jump in the power rankings this week. I have Ryan Naughton moving this high. I think his team is good. It's good, but the fact of the matter is he is winning right now. He has won the last 2 weeks without his best player. Ryan Naughton has put together a very impressive streak here. He now sits 4-1 in our league, and he gets Saquon Barkley back now. He pretty much locked himself off a playoff berth with a win the last 2 weeks. So Ryan Naughton moving up in my power rankings. He just simply does not lose. You can say he's lucky, whatever, but he is winning, and that's what matters. Coming in at number four, I have myself. Some of you are like, oh, Kevin should be higher. I totally agree. But at this point in time, my record does not show that I should be higher on the rankings just because I made fun of Cubby 2 weeks ago because he dropped 160 points. It just simply will not happen again. I put up 180 points this week. I had Christian McCaffrey go for 40. I had Aaron Jones go for 40, and I had the Eagles defense almost go for 40. That's 340 burgers. That is unheard of. That will never happen again, but this team does look like it's trending in the right direction. Julio Jones did not have himself a week, neither did T.Y. Hilton. So I see this team trending upwards, even if it won't repeat this last week. Coming in at number five, I have Jake Kerr. Talk about another sneaky good team this year. Jake is always on the radar. But after a slow start, he sits already 3-2. He's already in that playoff conversation here in going into week six. Jake's team, I think, is just a lot better than the bottom four teams. That's why I have him up this high. But I also think he's a lot worse than some of the top teams in our league. I don't think Jake could compete with the top four teams in our league, but he can definitely beat up on the lower four. Coming in at number six, I have Cubby. I have Cubby moving down. This is for a lot of reasons. First of all, he's piling on some losses and just some close, just terrible feeling losses. He lost to Naughton this week. We all thought it was a slammer for him to win. He only put up 108 points, which again is not winning in our league. Also, Cubby's players, they're just on losing teams. Besides Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett, he's got Nick Chubb just losing. He has Akins on the Houston offense as a tight end, losing. Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Mixon, losing. I mean, two of his top three running backs, in Nick Chubb and Joe Mixon, are just on awful, awful teams. I don't like that moving forward. I like some players on his team, though. That's why he's sitting at number six. But it's just going to be hard to move that team up with such crappy players in the lineup. Coming in at number seven, I have Drew Michael. Drew Michael, I have him dropping, but he's still higher than the other three teams because I have faith in Drew Michael's team. I mean, there's just so much to like on Drew's team. It just hasn't come together for him. I mean, he just beat the shit out of Ross this week. You gotta love that. But the problem is he sits 2-3. This team has just not really been consistent across the board. I mean, with player wise, his team has been dropping points, but player wise, he is very inconsistent. Le'Veon Bell moving forward, Mark Ingram. I mean, just big question marks. He's playing Josh Gordon. Those three players are scary. If Deshaun Watson and Michael Thomas don't produce one game, this is going to be a loss for this team. And Drew cannot afford a lot of losses moving forward, sitting 2-3. I think he'll be fine, but again, not a lot of losses that he can afford. Coming in at number 8, I have Ryan Smith. Ryan Smith is also sitting at 2-3. I think he's a little bit worse than Cubby's team and Drew's team. But Ryan Smith put up 91 points this last week. His team just doesn't seem to be clicking. Mike Evans, I mean, talk about Mr. Inconsistent right there. 40 burger, and then 0 when the team put up, I think, like 30 points, 20 points, whatever it is. They put up at least 3 touchdowns, and Mike Evans got 0 receptions after putting up a 40 burger. Ryan Smith's team just really hasn't put it together yet. Sitting 2-3, putting up an awful point total this week. I have them falling in our power rankings. Again, teams 1-8, I really think everybody has a shot. Let me say that now. Teams 1-8 is so nitpicky on who the best team is or who's above who. You could switch that. You know, if you switched me and Drew, I wouldn't be too upset about it in the power rankings. Honestly, if I was number 7 team and Drew was number 4, I wouldn't be upset about it. If you want to switch Ryan Smith and Ryan Naughton, I would not be upset about that. It's just I'm getting so nitpicky with people's point totals and where their points are coming from. And if their players are trending upwards in the right direction or falling down, 1-8 is just so tight. It's tighter than Cubby's pussy, honestly. 1-8. But coming in at number 9, this is a lock. Ross Davis, his team is awful. I mean, you guys just, if you're 1-8, you don't have to worry about Ross Davis. The only team Ross Davis has to worry about is the team that's number 10. Honestly, it's gonna be a battle of the idiots right here. It's just gonna be them, wanking each other off. Ross Davis and Matt Davis just beating each other's meat. These are the 2 worst teams in our league. These teams are not good. This last week, Matt Davis put up 81.5 points, and Ross Davis put up 99 points. They're not even seeing the hundreds going forward. These teams are not great. It's hard to pick up waivers right now in our league. They don't have enough players, I think, to make trades happen. It's going to be tough for these teams moving forward. They're just going to have to, best one another and try and beat it out for who wins Sacco. Then the next thing that I want to do, I'm just going to run through this real quick, talk about number 1 draft picks and the ranks that I put them in. Just so you could kind of reflect on how much has already changed since draft day and why trades are a thing in fantasy football. Christian McCaffrey was the best pick so far this season. I mean, week 5, going into week 5, by far best pick. He was my keeper pick. He was the best pick in the draft. Not the best pick in the draft, best number 1 pick in the draft. Coming in at number 2, Ezekiel Elliott, just consistent, very great pick. Coming in at number 3, Julio Jones. He's now been traded twice since then, but he was a great pick. Saquon Barkley, yes, he's been injured, but I still think he's the number 4 pick. He picked up right where he did last season, and it looks like he's going to return from this injury sooner rather than later. Alvin Kamara, number 5. James Conner, number 6. Nick Chubb, again, he's had 1 or 2 good games, but besides that, the Browns are not a good football team. Coming in at number 8, David Johnson. Gosh, we're getting into the really bad picks now, I think. 8, 9, and 10 are where you wasted your number 1 overall pick. 1 through 7, I would take any of those guys in the first round, probably over again. But 8, 9, and 10, David Johnson, Le'Veon Bell, and DeAndre Hopkins were not worth their first round pick easily. So just think about how much that has changed. When we get to the second round, I mean, things even get crazier. Um, just to name off what was picked in the second round, I wasn't gonna waste your guys' time going through all that, but here's people picked in the second round: Devonte Adams, Juju Smith-Schuster, geez, Delvin Cook, great pick. Tyreek Hill hasn't played. Odell Beckham Jr., awful. Joe Mixon, trash. Todd Gurley, decent pick. Michael Thomas, great pick. Mike Evans, eh. And Travis Kelce, honestly, just I don't know. Travis Kelce probably hasn't held as good of value as years past, but not an awful pick. But it's just crazy to see how much has actually changed since draft day. Just want to get that in your guys' mind to maybe generate some trades in the future here. You need to trade if you want to make changes within your team. If you don't like it now, trade. Make something happen. 5 takeaways from week 5. Oh, shit. 2 of them already popped up. Whatever. We'll start with the top one. Cubby finally stopped bragging about Ronald Jones. I don't know what it is with Cubby, but he likes bragging about not a very good football team and a player on that team who splits carries 50-50 and sometimes not even that he is taking over the starting role over another guy who's just not too great. I mean, it's in the same boat. They both drop about 8 to 10 points each week. Ronald Jones and I don't even know who I have. Peyton Barber. I had to look up what this guy's name was, but it's Ronald Jones. Cubby, just please shut up about him. Nobody wants to hear about fucking Ronald Jones. He hasn't done shit all season. It's just painful. Trades are as rare as waiver wire pickups. I was just talking about this in the last slide about how there needs to be some trades generated. Something's moving here. Something has to give. There's not a lot of waivers picked up this year. Number one, because we drafted better, but number two, the IR spot and keeping our loaded bench really takes away from that waiver wire right now. There's not much to pick up, and honestly, there just hasn't been a guy who has come up off the scene. That's another thing too. That's probably actually the biggest. It's not just because we drafted better, but there's just no surprise guy this year. There's no really surprise rookie. Josh Jacobs was already on the scene. If anything, Miles Sanders and David Montgomery have been busts. So there's just been no surprise guy. Nobody's been really holding out. Austin Eckler, I mean, we drafted him, but that was a pretty easy pick after what happened last year with Le'Veon Bell. My third takeaway, we are 1 week until we are halfway through the regular season. We are going into week 6. There is only 13 weeks of the regular season. The magic number for the playoffs is always 7 or 8 wins. Depending on who you're battling, obviously, you have to go until your individual record with that person if you're tied at 7 wins. So you're for sure lock if you have 8 wins. 8 wins is a lock. 7 wins, you more than likely have, a chance of the playoffs. There's only usually one team that's knocked out with 7 wins, and even that usually doesn't happen. But so we have some teams that are actually already very close to making the playoffs and locking that up. Josh sits 4-1. Tyler sits 4-1. Ryan Naughton sits 4-1. We have 3 teams that are 4-1 that are already after this week could be 2 wins away from the playoffs. Me and Jake sit 3-2. Very close already to the playoffs. I know it sounds early to talk about the playoffs, but you got to remember we only do regular season, and we take out one of those weeks of the regular season. Fantasy football is quick moving. The whole football season is quick moving, but just enjoy it. But realize if you are one of those bottom teams, you don't have a lot of time to work with. My fourth takeaway, Mr. Consistent goes to. I talked about Mr. Consistent a lot last year because I think that's the team that's one of the hottest. That could be, can win the most, put up the most wins, can be dangerous in the playoffs. And that team this year, who I'm giving Mr. Consistent to right now, is Tyler Colin. 120 to about 140 points each week. He only varies about 20 points. His team, the points don't come from one player, even though Dalvin Cook is having a career year. It doesn't come from one player all the time. It comes from the whole lineup of players. Mr. Consistent definitely goes to Tyler at this moment. And my fifth takeaway is Josh is no longer undefeated. It definitely opens up the playing field for those bye weeks. As much as we want to talk about the playoffs and teams making it, those might be locks, but the bye weeks are wide open. I mean, wide open. We are there is 5 or 6 teams that are only one game apart from each other, and those are the top teams in our league. We are it's wide open for the bye weeks. The bye week is huge because then you only have to win 2 games to win the Shiva. Usually, a team that has the bye week wins the Shiva. It's not the number one seed. The number one seed has never won the Shiva, but teams that have that bye, so the second place team usually is taking home the Shiva. So keep that in mind when you are, when you think the bye week isn't important, it means just about everything. But the other half of this is Matt is still defeated. He has not won a game. I do not know if it will happen this week either, because now Todd Gurley is looking like he is not playing. This guy is it's just the worst luck I think I've ever seen with 2 seasons combined. Last year was insane because his team wasn't that bad. Makes it to the Sacco Bowl. And then Ryan Smith goes 3-0 after going 0-13. That was unlucky in itself. And then I guess you could say it's been an unlucky 3 seasons for Matt Davis. I mean, I've just never seen this out of a fantasy, roster or a fantasy manager to see this kind of luck. As much as fantasy football we want to say is skill, it's good, 60 to 70% luck. And Matt Davis is getting none of that. So, those are my takeaways. Those are my power rankings heading into Week 6. I am very excited to play Drew Michael this week. I think this is a great matchup. I think we got some great matchups going in. I'm excited to see Cubby's review for the week. We got some good games coming in. I hope it lives up to the hype. I will talk to you all in the Discord and the group chat in the coming days. See you later.